Welcome to What the Health? The podcast where anything health is fair game. There's a lot of garbage advice and misinformation out there that can leave you feeling stumped and stuck. Together, let's sift through the sea of BS and find the best ways to get healthy and stay healthy. Join the team as we tackle the trends and bust the myths about health and wellness. Here are your hosts, Dr. Dan Turo, Angela Turo, and Dr. Riley Brown.
Welcome back, everyone, to our final part with Chef Sofya Sterns. We are going to wrap up this part talking about your pride and joy, your daughter who's 14, Izabella, and really kind of bridging the gap between, what you've experienced throughout your life, what you've recently learned about yourself with, some of the x-rays and our analysis, and how that related back to some of the bullying and the mental emotional trauma and physical trauma that you experienced. Now coming full circle to the next generation. And we talk about that in our books. I told her I'm going to shamelessly plug my book. And again, this has been an educational tool, right? This is, we don't make money on this, but we help people understand what it is, we do with chiropractic. And so the big thing we talk about is, again, a lot of times we have adults come in because you were injured, and you're trying to heal and manage through that injury. And we can actually go back and say, well, a lot of this started back when you were a teenager, and you were very easy. Not everyone knows exactly what started it, but you were very easily able to connect it to, physical bullying, growing up in a different country. But now, you have a daughter who's a teenager, and, I've got a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old, and it's like, what can we do for our kids so that they don't end up down the same difficult paths we do, right? And we're all humans. We all have our own, our own difficulties, right? We talked about that in the last episode. Like, we all have our own challenges, and we learn best through experience. But there are experiences that, maybe we can help them have other, more fulfilling experiences if we can get them through some of the more difficult, challenging times. So that was a long-winded way of saying, what does Izabella do that, because you immediately after your first appointment, you asked me like, well, I think my daughter could benefit from this. So what was it about our initial conversation that made you think, oh, my daughter, should come in and get checked out?
Well, first of all, I'm sure as a child, and I might not remember, I'm sure she has fallen. I'm sure she hurt herself during a gym class, which I was not aware of. She does tell me sometimes, I hurt, I fell, I'm clumsy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. However, I didn't know to what extent she could have hurt herself.
Correct.
Right? She's not limping afterwards, so I'm assuming she's okay.
Yeah.
Right? So...
yeah, there's not an outward sign of pain or discomfort.
She's not limping or she's not in a lot of pain. At least she doesn't tell me, right? However, there could be damage.
Sure.
And it's better to catch now when she's only 14 versus when she's in her late teens or when she's an adult, basically in her 20s.
And that timeline is so important, Sophia, because we talk to people all the time about, again, just the progression. And like we have a whole poster that we talk about graceful aging. And graceful aging starts when you're, in the womb, okay? Because even the health of mom and dad at the time of conception has an impact on the health of the baby in utero. And then after baby's born, certainly the mental, emotional state of the household has an impact. And then again, you have physical traumas. Even the act of being born is a very physically traumatic experience. I shouldn't call it traumatic, but it's a very physically challenging experience for both mom and baby.
Absolutely.
And then you mentioned falling, right? Kids on average fall thousands of times when they're learning how to walk. Yeah, it is. And it's like, and again, 99.99% of the time they're fine. But sometimes it's that fall that just knocks that hip or, twists that tailbone or that lower spine starts to lock up, and those forces can go all the way up into the neck. And, and so your spine works as a unit. And so that, what am I trying to say here? The spinal maturity happens around 18 to 24 years old, depending on male or female, okay? Which means that the spine and your bones, your joints are done growing, okay? Well, growth plates are closed up. the ligaments, the muscles have kind of set the tension around there. And it doesn't mean it can't be changed, but once you hit that time frame, it's much more difficult to change. So if you have an injury, again, the term we use in chiropractic is subluxation, and you've had that from a young age or pre-adolescent, adolescent age, and then you take that subluxation through the spinal majority process, and so now you're 24, 25 years old. Well, now the body has accepted that subluxation, which is an interference or it's an increased stress on your system. The body has accepted that as your normal now. And so, again, it doesn't mean it can't be improved upon or reduced, but it's much harder to make a correction after that spinal maturity, which is why it's so important to get your kids checked before they hit that time.
Yeah.
Just imagine, we have a mutual friend who's a dentist, right? Imagine if you never took your child to the dentist from the time they're 2 years old and their teeth start popping out through the time they're 21, 22, 24 years old. I mean, we'd probably be called for child services, right?
Absolutely, but it's true.
But you can see the teeth, and again, it's like the dental profession has done an amazing job educating the public that, hey, once the child's teeth are visible to the dentist, like, go in and get them checked out. And again, it's not that you have to go all the time to the dentist, but once or twice a year, you go into the dentist, you make sure everything looks good, make sure everything's growing appropriately, and then, oh, by the way, here's some simple hygienic practices that you can do on your own on a daily basis: brushing, flossing, don't eat sugar, a lot of sugar, so it's simple practices that you can do on your own at home. And it's like, if chiropractic as a profession, and it's our own profession's fault, would just start to
more education,
some of that education.
That's exactly what it is. You need education on everything, really. Exactly. On nutrition, on your body, like, how else are we going to know?
Yeah.
Right. First of all, we don't want to read books on everything.
Right.
We want to hear it on the news or on TV or on podcast. That's why we're doing this podcast, because it's so much easier. You can be in a car and
you can listen.
Listening. Exactly. Yeah. So this is your learning.
Don't watch and drive, though.
It is a learning, and it's educational, right? And it's easy, right? Because we did all the research. Exactly. You did all your research for the listeners, and I did the same research for the same listeners, right? So they can learn from both of us.
Exactly.
But for Izabella, like, she's been dancing since she was less than 3. So she's been dancing for 11 years.
Wow.
And then she took a intensive summer camp last summer, and she said she was in a lot of pain, and we had to do physical therapy, and they helped her a lot.
Yeah.
However, since I'm seeing you, I figured I need to bring my child, and then I guarantee you her hips are probably off like mine.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you there's going to be some abnormalities. However, she's only 14, right? And we have time to make sure that we fix her. Yeah. To have a dancer, it's not, we started doing dance, ballet. I love the school, by the way. It's Waxford Dance Academy. They're tough, but they're amazing. I mean, their shows are top notch, and I'm very critical. I know a good show versus a bad show. I love my arts.
Is she strictly ballet, or does she?
No, we do. Not we. I should say she.
It's a we. It's a team effort.
It is a team.
You drive her.
I'm the Uber.
It's right. The unpaid Uber driver.
Yes, unpaid. Sometimes she doesn't tip me.
That's right.
There's no tips involved. So she does ballet, point, which is, honestly, it's the same, and jazz and tap.
Okay.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing school. However, it puts a toll on your body, on your toes, on your hips, on everything, on your knees, on your ankles. Right? It's normal, right? Your whole body is moving, especially when your feet are moving.
Yeah, I had a couple dancers who were in
their
40s and 50s.
And they're paying the price now. Absolutely.
Yes.
But it's a beautiful,
It is. It's a beautiful art. It really
it's
is.
beautiful.
Not everyone can do it.
And the music, and it's just coordination. And I put her on the dance, is because it teaches you to be punctual, teamwork, right? You have to listen to the teacher.
And trust your partners.
And it's amazing to stay physique. It's amazing, right? So she's not into sports, but she does this 4 or 5 times a week. It's amazing. Absolutely. And I love it, And as a mom of a dancer, I also make sure, I always want to make sure that she eats good nutrition. And I'm not saying I am trying to be strict with her, but she's a teenager, right? So she can just eat all the salads as much as I eat.
Yeah.
However, I always tell her that if you don't want to have either a steak or a burger or a chicken, you need a snack with protein. It's important. Your body needs it because you've been using all those muscles. You have to replenish with liquids, with waters, right?
Yeah.
With hydration and with your muscles, they need to get
electrolytes.
Yep. So you need to make sure that you eat enough protein. Will I force her to eat a piece of chicken every day? No. However, as a snack, for example, I do have a banana with make a banana sushi with either almond butter or cashew butter or peanut butter and put some fruits on it. There you go. It's an amazing snack.
Yeah.
Have a shake, the same thing. Have some peanut butter or almond butter, add to it. Yeah. There's so many other ways to do it. Have a bowl of yogurt. And since I do a lot of classes on nutrition, I also always say that regular yogurt doesn't really do anything for you. Greek yogurt has a lot more protein. Yeah. So have a bowl of yogurt with berries, antioxidants, and sprinkle it with granola. Yeah. There you go. You got yourself a protein. Chia seeds are amazing. At certain age, you can only start using chia seeds. At certain age, it's not for obviously little kids. Yeah. But it's an amazing form of fiber and protein. Yeah. And that's amazing for you. Yeah. Right. So there's certain ways, or have a Rice Krispie with almond butter or peanut butter. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So there's way to doing it, but I also want to make sure that she does maintain this healthy lifestyle by making the good choices. Yeah. Of course, she eats chocolates. I mean, that's kind of, which is good for you. Dark chocolate.
Yeah, dark chocolate, absolutely.
Is perfect.
Dark chocolate and sea salt is one of my favorites.
Yes, my favorite. Though I'm not a big fan of desserts, but I love dark chocolate with salt.
So it all comes down. You were talking about the dancing, and obviously now, we always talk about chiropractic from a performance perspective, right? Because so many people want to, not want to, but they wait to come in until they're in pain, right? And that would be kind of like waiting until your check engine light comes on, or waiting until your engine starts smoking to go into the mechanic. Yeah. It's like, no, you put good oil in your car. You have to do gas in your car. So you're doing the practices and the habits to keep healthy, because it's a lot easier to stay healthy than recover, right? So and that's again kind of the theme of probably this conversation is, it's a lot easier to raise healthy children than recover injured or sick adults. Absolutely. And again, it doesn't mean we can't recover injured or sick adults.
However,
it takes more time.
And you're already in pain, right? You're already in pain.
Exactly.
So why go through this pain when you can actually perhaps prevent it?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm excited bringing Izabella to your office.
Well, yeah, and you can. So we're gonna, we get to see like what she has going on, and again, not just from a pain perspective, but from a performance perspective. Because a lot of times we have kids come in. I had a soccer player just yesterday come in. He was slide tackled, and he sprained his ankle, but he landed hard on his hip. And when he came in, he had a 50% reduction in his strength and his ability to lift his left leg versus his right. And one adjustment, it was like 80 to 90% corrected. And again, because he's a teenager, he's 16, 17 years old. I just slipped that in there. Hope to cut that for the kiddos. But yeah, I mean, he's younger, he's pre-spinal maturity, but that's about performance, right? Because he was in pain from the slide tackle, but his hip wasn't significantly in pain. He was having a little bit of numbness, but it's like that was, you gave it another week or two, he would have been out of pain, but he wouldn't have had the correction. And so now he'd be trying to play soccer and be wondering why he doesn't have the strength in his left leg versus his right. The same thing, you could take that to Sofya, you're Sofya, to Izabella. Sorry, when I get going, the coffee's finally kicking in. We need the wine to pull it back down. Take a breath, Dr. Dan.
Finally kicked in.
Right. But yeah, you have Izabella, again, when you sometimes even just landing normally, you're still, that's a ton of force. I mean, they calculate that force when you're landing from a dance move, in the multi-hundreds to 1,000 pounds of, of force that goes up through your leg, your spine. And so again, even landing normally, it's a lot of force that's on your spine. So getting that, attention and adjustment to make sure that the body is fine-tuned and
Absolutely.
continues to perform well, even if you're not in pain. A lot of professional athletes are finally on board with this concept of performance.
They should have known time ago.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but nowadays, it's like, I don't think you can meet a professional athlete that doesn't utilize chiropractic as part of their performance routine and recovery process. But it's the same thing. We're all athletes to some extent.
Absolutely.
So it's just a matter, because we all have, the neuromuscular, joints, exactly. So we move that body, and so making sure that it's well aligned and performing is the job of the chiropractor. So again, whether it's the 3-year-old dancer to the 14-year-old dancer, the soccer player, the band and instruments and holding those instruments. My son's going to Disney to perform for his band in a couple weeks, and it's like, he plays trumpet, so he's holding that.
So you're holding, so your shoulders are probably off, right?
Yeah.
Then you have to make sure your spine is.
And you're marching all day long. So imagine you have a little bit of a tilt in your pelvis or a twist in your pelvis, and you're then marching with that abnormal gait. And then again, you have a lot of people who are just, they just do their own running or their own, weightlifting, and it's like, imagine if you're off, that off alignment, and you're trying to do that. Well, if your tires are out of alignment, they wear down a lot faster. Right. Same thing with your body. If it's out of alignment, it wears down faster, not just, physically, but biochemically, because there's more stress on the communication.
And just because you don't feel it, that doesn't mean that it's not going to hurt you going forward. And that's the whole point, right?
Exactly.
If I knew that maybe I should check my spine, right? But I never thought about it.
No,
because I was a kid.
Yeah, you were a kid, and
you don't think about it.
Exactly, and that's where the education process comes into play.
You can do like a checkup. It's exactly what it is. Like when you see a dentist, for example, you don't go see a dentist because you have a toothache. Yes. You just need to make sure that you don't have a cavity somewhere. Yeah, right. And it is amazing. Exactly
some kids, especially if they are, let's say they're. Maybe they're on the spectrum, or they do have like a behavioral disability. They might need a lot more care because they need that more care.
They need an adjustment.
To help calm that nervous system. But a lot of kids, it's a simple analysis and a handful of adjustments, and man, they are
completely changed their life. Yeah. And the families can see the difference, and the kid feels. And it's better for the kid, right? Because he's happier.
Yes.
He doesn't have this like somewhere discomfort.
Yeah, like a subconscious, like, why am I not feeling
right? Exactly. There's something bothering me, but I don't know what it is.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. If you've ever had that thought, for you or your kid, it's like something's
I'm off. Something is off,
but I don't know what it is. Go see a chiropractor.
Absolutely, but it's true though, right? Because it's not just what you do. I think you're just going to crack me. I know it sounds stupid. However, the first thing we did a
very thorough
half an hour of X-rays. Mm-hmm. It was amazing, right? So you can see my spine right away, and then every time I come back for the appointment, you do the
thermal scan, the infrared thermal scan.
You took the words right out of my mouth, which I could not pronounce it, but whatever.
Okay. Well, you can start learning how to say that, and I'll start learning how to say bruschetta.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I did it. That was a whole joke in the previous episode. You have to watch.
You have to watch. You have to know. However, it's exactly what it is. It's not just cracking me. You can actually see every time you do a thermal scan, you can see right away where I'm off, and you know exactly what to concentrate on.
Yes.
Right? And it's exactly what it is. So when I'm going to bring Izabella, obviously I know she's going to be off because clearly she has 14
years of experience.
Exactly. So I know she will. However, I'm also very hopeful that she's not off by a lot, and it's preventative, so we can do, if God forbid there is a problem, you're able to fix it. And she's going to thank me later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. she'll kick and scream. Why are we going to this appointment, right?
Yes, I know.
That's
I could
that's
be going to
typical
Starbucks for
14-year-old.
coffee.
There you go. Yeah, well, you bribe her with the coffee. That'll work.
Yes, I will. With the shake or something.
Did she start? When did she start drinking coffee?
So she actually drinks coffee now almost every single day, and I'm okay with it. Just because I think I was like 7 or 8 when I started drinking coffee.
Oh, really? Wow.
It's okay, but it's not extremely strong coffee, and I think she puts so much stuff in it.
Well, that's what my son started drinking it recently. That's
okay.
why I asked.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm fine.
Like maybe over a year.
Yeah.
It's not that.
Yeah.
Don't start too early because it does have a lot of caffeine.
Well, yeah.
However,
teenager, and again, what I stress to him is watch what you put in it, man, because
sugar,
the amount of sugar in these drinks is just
horrible.
nuts.
Yes.
It's you can see a little shamrock. We're in March here. We just finished St. Patrick's Day, and of course, some of the major chains had their big. I gotta probably watch trademark on this, but they had their special St. Patrick's Day shakes, right? And
oh my God, I can only imagine what it would.
I mean, it's hundreds of grams of sugar in like a medium shake, and it's just whoa. And,
I know.
And people go and they get these drinks from the different big chains, and it's not just Starbucks is not the only one that's guilty. It's like you look at
Dunkin' Donuts.
It's like you look at the amount of sugar in these drinks, and it's just overkill.
It is overkill for a child because then you get this rush.
Yes.
And then you're going to crash.
Well, again, we talk about addiction in the first part that we and because you work with families who have addicts, and it's like yes, you have very hard drugs, but processed sugar works on the body.
Oh my God,
like hard drugs.
Yeah, it's for kids. It's horrible.
It's very
and
much an
addiction. I preach about it, and I do a lot of assemblies on nutrition. I give a lot of talks on nutrition, and you would think that people advertise different certain bars, protein bars for breakfast. However, you have to read the labels because you'd be surprised how much sugar there is added to those bars, right? And a good example would be if I always actually say this: if I'm tired, like midday, instead of going for another cup of coffee, which is easy, it's right there, you can grab it. Go for an apple. Mm-hmm. Or have like a handful of figs, for example, or anything that has a natural sugar.
Yes.
And it's natural sugar. Yeah. So you're not going to get this, you're not going to go high on this after eating something, right? So your body is going to stabilize and you're just going to feel more energized, but it's natural sugar, like apple or anything that has sweetness to it.
Yeah, that and I will say almost always people like the fogginess and the fatigue comes from dehydration a lot of times. And so if you're feeling like that, that after lunch crash, late morning crash, especially after the coffee is kind of wearing out, it's like a lot of times your body is dehydrated. So the first thing I do, as many times as I can, the first thing you should do when you wake up in the morning is drink water. Okay, before you go to the coffee cup, drink your water, 16 to 24 ounces, and just get it in your system. And it helps to kickstart your system, and then you kind of wake up a little bit.
It wakes you up.
And it also fills you up, so you're not going to. It starts the digestive process, and then you don't feel like you need to eat as much either because you're filling your stomach up. You don't need to drink as much coffee, and so many people with so many health challenges can be attributed in part to dehydration. Just drink the water. And if you don't know how much to drink, take your body weight in pounds, divide it by 2, drink that many ounces of water. So if you're a 200-pound person, 100 ounces of water is typical. It is a lot of water. So, but it really is. It's like that's, especially if you're active too.
Especially when the summer is coming up, eventually it will.
Yeah.
Eventually we will have summer.
Yeah. Eventually. I think we're turning the corner. We're looking outside and there's no snow.
There's no snow. The snow has melted.
It has. Well, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure chatting with you. I love these conversations, and I think we're going to continue.
More to come?
Yes, we're going to keep more coming, and community events and working together because we live in this awesome community of the North Pittsburgh region.
For sure.
And we get to bring a lot of this. So
absolutely.
Is there any other way, just remind for people on this episode, how can they get in touch with you?
The name of the business is Izabella's Gourmet Chow. Isabella with a Z. And I have an Instagram and Facebook. And if you want to reach me by email, it's isabellasgourmetchow.com.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that that's
Gmail.
all at gmail.com. All right. And we'll make sure all of that's in the contact stuff, and the links are in the description, so it's easy for people to find. But it has been an honor and pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And we'll see everyone at the next episode.
Yep.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You've been listening to another episode of What the Health? The podcast where anything health is fair game. With your hosts, Dr. Dan, Angela, and Dr. Riley. Brought to you by Chiro Family Chiropractic. If you'd like to learn more about some of the resources mentioned on this show, or you have questions about something that was discussed, please reach out through our website at www.chirofamilychiropractic.com. Remember to like and subscribe to What the Health Podcast to catch all the latest episodes and replay your favorites. Thank you for listening, and remember, we're always here to help when you find yourself saying, "What the hell?"